Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you all tonight about the new movie, I Am Not Your Negro. I don't know if you all have been seeing some of the trailers about that movie. It was so interesting that I hadn't heard about James Baldwin before. So if you all haven't heard about him, look him up on YouTube and look at some of the videos about James Baldwin. He was a homosexual African-American man back in civil rights time. He was friends with Martin Luther King, and he had a very interesting take on the African-American experience and what he would call like the Negro experience. So I didn't know much about him, so I started researching last night because I couldn't sleep for some reason. So I started researching about him, and I found a debate with him and William F. Buckley. So I think it's a good debate that you all should go out and look at on YouTube. But one of the things that I noticed with William Buckley, it was very interesting seeing both sides of the debate. So they were pretty much debating about the African American experience and how America has made money off of African Americans or the modern day at the time Negro, and black people haven't really seen very much from that. And Mr. Buckley was a Southerner, and they were debating actually in England. And Mr. Buckley was arguing against that. And so Mr. Buckley had some very good points that were very interesting. So one of the things that he talked about was there was a study. He was talking about a study he had read. He talked about how at the time African Americans did not make the assertion as other minority groups had made during the American experience. So pretty much saying that, Jewish people, Italian people, they were able to still make it even though they were oppressed at one point in time. I understand where he was coming from there, but, when you're talking about slavery, 400 years of oppression, it doesn't really equate to the same thing. But I do see where he's coming from in that situation. So he gave a statistic. He said that in 1900 there were 3,500 black doctors, and in 1960 there were 3,900 black doctors. So there was an increase of 400. So what he was saying was that because those black people were oppressed, or should that number have ramped up even higher because of African Americans not pushing themselves to be doctors? So what he said was, are they oppressed because he was saying that they're not oppressed because there were schools at the time that would allow African Americans to come in and become a doctor, and there are scholarship money for that. So his argument was that in order for the black community to do better, they have to focus on doing better themselves and pretty much pushing themselves to do better. So depending on what your mindset is, you could think multiple things about his statement. What I take from it, because I've learned to take the positives out of any potentially negative comment, is that focusing on education is so important in not only just the black community, but in any community. But talking about the black community with this debate, focus on the education and letting these kids know that they can become a doctor or a lawyer. I think it's important to tell them that young, when they're 2-3 years old, call them Dr. Carolina or Dr. Smith, get that into their head. And so if they choose to do something else, they'll remember that, hey, my mom or my dad felt that I should be successful and I could be a doctor. And you never know, they could be a doctor. I have a friend who's a doctor right now, and his mom pushed him throughout his entire life, and she pretty much knew he was going to become a doctor. And he ended up becoming a doctor and doing things to help save lives. So I think that's something that we can focus on, is really pushing that education. If your kid's struggling, it's important that you try to find them a tutor or spend some extra time with them. If your kid doesn't have any interests, anything that you think of, try to find out what their interest is and cultivate that interest and let them know that, hey, I'm behind you no matter what you like to do. If they like animals, take them to a zoo and let them volunteer at a zoo. If they like cars, get them around cars. If they're interested in reading, get them as many books as possible so you can cultivate that knowledge and hopefully raise a very successful young person that turns into a successful adult. So it was a very interesting debate that he had. He talked about African Americans focusing so much on the discrimination that white people have done towards them versus focusing inward and seeing how they could progress themselves even through discrimination. So I thought that was interesting because, discrimination is real, but the positive spin on that is that you can't take discrimination and just decide that you're going to throw your hands up and give up. There's going to be racist people. There's going to be people who have different views on you as a black male or a white woman or a black woman. There's going to be people who have different views on you. Even as a white male, there's going to be people who have different views on you. And so if you allow that to hold you back, then you're just doing exactly what they want you to do. So what I think is important is that not only should you talk about the discrimination that is evident throughout majority of systems in America, but also talk about how do we help with upward mobility. So how do we help a 7-year-old whose mother is 15 years or 16 years older than him, his grandmother is 17 years older than his mother, and they're all working jobs that may not bring a lot of money into the household? How do we show that kid that there's a way out? We have to provide that kid with hope. And that hope comes from focusing on education, helping them experience other things that are outside of their current neighborhood, hooking them up with a mentor or a counselor at their school. But it's so difficult when your mother's working all day. Your father may be absent or your father may be working all day. It's so difficult to take that time out, but it's so vital in order for that child to be successful. In order to break those stereotypes or those current realities for so many people, I think education is the key. But I wanted to just talk to you all for a quick second about the James Baldwin. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I want to go see it over the next couple days. But I thought that debate was very interesting. So if you can go to YouTube and you just type in James Baldwin versus William F. Buckley debate, I think you'll like it. So take a look at it, see what you think. I liked it.